Can you imagine the gut-wrenching betrayal when your own sister, someone you loved and trusted, tells you your child isn't welcome at her wedding? Not because of any bad behavior, but because his wheelchair would ruin the pictures. I still can't wrap my head around that kind of cold-hearted cruelty. What would you do when faced with such an injustice? Let me tell you, it still feels raw. My sister Carol, I've changed her name for obvious reasons. She's 29 and I'm 35. We were always close. Like best friends close. So when she got engaged a few months back, I was thrilled for her. But something shifted. The moment that ring was on her finger, she changed. Honestly, she became a total bridezilla, but not in a funny way. It was disturbing. Then, about 2 months before the wedding, the invitations started going out. I was expecting mine, of course. We were family. But instead, I got a phone call. And Carol, my sister, told me point blank, I wasn't getting an invitation. Neither was the rest of my immediate family. My 2 kids, my 12-year-old son and 8-year-old daughter, who adored their Aunt Carol, they weren't invited either. The reason? My son's wheelchair. It hit me like a ton of bricks. My son had a terrible accident about 2 years ago. It changed everything for us. He's been in a wheelchair ever since, undergoing physiotherapy, fighting so hard to walk again. We're hopeful, so incredibly hopeful. But until then, that wheelchair is a part of his life, a part of our life, and it deserves respect. When Carol told me she was worried about her wedding photos, that his wheelchair would ruin them, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, there was a simple solution if that was truly her concern. Just ask the photographer to avoid including him in certain shots. But the fact that she even thought that way, that she would make such a cruel decision because of my son's disability, it was sickening. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. My voice was calm, but inside, I was shaking with disbelief. I just told her, fine. I completely understand. I won't be there. And then I hung up. In that moment, I knew. Our relationship, the one I cherished, it was fundamentally broken. There was no going back. I quietly cut her out of my life. My husband was the only one I told. I knew if I breathed a word to anyone else, it would explode into a huge family drama, and the absolute last thing I wanted was for my son to be dragged into this, to feel like he was a burden or an embarrassment. So, I swallowed the hurt, put on a brave face, and kept my mouth shut. For months, whenever I saw my parents or Carol, I'd pretend everything was fine. She did too. So when the wedding day came and went, and I wasn't there, people were confused. Questions started pouring in. Why weren't you at Carol's wedding? Even then, I stuck to my story. I told everyone my father-in-law had been very ill, and we needed to be there for him. Nobody pressed it. Not my parents, not my brother-in-law, Kevin. Things stayed that way until recently. We were all at my cousin's engagement party. The whole family was there. At one point, Kevin, Carol's husband, cornered my husband and me. He was genuinely upset. He told us he was so disappointed we hadn't come to the wedding, or even reached out afterward. He understood about my father-in-law, he said, but couldn't understand the radio silence. Kevin and I had always gotten along. He's a genuinely sweet guy, and he'd been with Carol for years before they married, so he was family. I tried to deflect, to apologize and promise we'd make it up to him. I really didn't want to go there. But he wouldn't let it go. He insisted, I know something's wrong. Did I do something? Did I offend you? My husband and I looked at each other. He deserved to know. He was blaming himself. So I took a deep breath and I told him everything. I recounted Carol's phone call, her chilling words about my son and his wheelchair, and how I chose to protect my child and avoid drama. Kevin was stunned. His face just fell. He was shocked, absolutely shocked. He apologized profusely, on Carol's behalf. He said if he'd had any idea she was capable of something like that, he would have stopped her. He was visibly disturbed. For the rest of the party, he glued himself to my side, ignoring Carol completely. I could see the furious, dark looks she was shooting my way from across the room. After the party, we all went home. I honestly thought that was it, The truth was out, but the drama would stay contained. Boy, was I wrong. Just 3 days later, my parents called. They knew. They'd found out the real reason I hadn't attended. And, oh, the way they said it, they kept repeating they didn't want to get involved, but they needed to tell me Carol was furious. Apparently, ever since I told Kevin, he's been insisting Carol go to therapy. He sees her as cruel and heartless. They've been fighting nonstop because Carol, unbelievably, thinks she did the right thing. That her wedding would have been a bust otherwise. I wholeheartedly agree with Kevin. She is cruel. My parents then dropped the bomb. Carol was blaming me for sabotaging her marriage, for trying to turn Kevin against her as revenge. It was ridiculous. My parents, who kept saying they weren't taking sides, somehow managed to make it sound like I was the problem. My husband reassured me I had nothing to feel sorry for, but I still wanted to understand. So I confronted them. I went to their house, my heart heavy. I told them how much it bothered me that they'd tried to guilt-trip me into feeling responsible for Carol's fallout, all while claiming neutrality. If Carol wanted to talk, she could have called me herself. At first, they denied it, saying they just wanted their daughters to get along. But I pushed. I told them I wasn't stupid. I could see what was happening. That's when they finally admitted it. A part of them did believe it was my fault for telling Kevin the truth. Months had passed, they said. Everyone was over it. You had no reason to dig it all back up and create trouble in her otherwise happy marriage just to get back at her. That stung. That really, really stung. The idea that I was trying to be vindictive to cause trouble? It was insulting. I knew Carol would paint me as the villain. She created the mess. She'd do anything to play the victim. But my parents? The ones who kept harping on about not picking sides? I got upset. I told them it was obvious whose side they were on. They completely overlooked the horrific thing Carol had done, the way she treated their grandson because of his disability. They knew how sensitive we were about his accident, how traumatic it was for all of us, and yet they were so nonchalant. They were trying to make me out to be the one overreacting. They tried to argue, claiming they cared about their grandson, but that it was Carol's wedding. She had the right to invite whoever she wanted. And I agreed. She absolutely had that right. But I also had the right to be offended, to distance myself from her, and yes, to tell her husband the truth when he insisted on knowing. If she made that decision, she had to stand by the consequences. They kept telling me I was making a huge deal out of nothing. It was pointless. I just got up and left. It was clear where their loyalties lay. When I got home, my husband told me he was proud I had stood my ground. And honestly, his opinion is the only one that truly matters. After that, I blocked Carol everywhere. I didn't want to hear from her. About a week passed. Then, something happened that made my blood run cold. Carol, unable to reach me, messaged my son on Instagram. She told him I'd blocked her, and she needed to talk to me. That crossed a line. My son, though young, is incredibly bright. He'd sensed the tension between his aunt and me. He'd asked before, and I'd always dodged. But now, with Carol reaching out directly, he insisted. He needed to know. My heart pounded. I never wanted to burden him with this, to hurt him further. But I realized I couldn't keep this secret forever. If I didn't tell him, Carol might, and that would be infinitely worse. He deserved the truth from me. So, I sat him down and told him everything. My voice was gentle, but I didn't sugarcoat it. I braced myself for tears, for anger, for confusion. But he just took it. He took it with a maturity that astounded me. He thanked me for keeping it from him for so long, and for finally telling him now. He said he understood completely why I'd cut off contact. I tried to reassure him, to make sure he knew he was loved, never rejected. He just looked at me and said, "Mom, I've dealt with enough trauma for a lifetime. This kind of petty behavior from Aunt Carol, it doesn't really faze me anymore." Hearing him say that, seeing his brave face, even though I knew how much he used to adore her, it filled me with such immense pride. My husband and I, we raised him right. I was so glad I chose honesty. My son is surrounded by love, his dad, his sister, his friends, his teachers. He's healing inside and out. He's going to be more than fine. Then the unexpected happened. One evening, Carol showed up at my door. My husband and I were home. I quickly sent the kids to the neighbors, just in case. I braced myself for another fight. She immediately launched into it, furious that I'd told Kevin. She called me vindictive and petty. She said Kevin refused to talk to her, wouldn't even discuss anything until she agreed to therapy. He was avoiding her, coming home late, sick of her. I just listened. When she finished venting, I calmly told her, "None of this is my fault. You're projecting your guilt onto me. You know deep down you messed up, but you're not ready to admit it." I expected more arguments. She looked ready to lash out again. But then, she just broke. She collapsed onto my couch, sobbing. My husband and I stood there, stunned. It was completely unexpected. Eventually, I sat beside her, not touching, just waiting. When she finally calmed down, she started apologizing. She admitted I was right. She'd known for a while how insensitive and disrespectful she'd been. The reason she was taking it so hard? Kevin had put their plans to have a baby on hold indefinitely. He couldn't trust her to be a good mother after how heartlessly she'd treated her own nephew. That had shattered her. She'd been desperate to be a mom, and now it was all on hold. Her anger, her frustration, it had all been misdirected at me. My husband and I just looked at each other. We forgave her, we said. But we truly, genuinely suggested she go to therapy. Her behavior had been unreasonable and disturbing. Maybe Kevin was right. Maybe she wasn't ready to be a mother yet. It was harsh, but it was the truth. She cried some more. This time, I actually consoled her a little. But as she was leaving, I told her I still needed distance. I wasn't over everything. She understood. She said she'd keep her distance. I don't know what the future holds for us. If we'll ever truly reconcile the way we used to be. But for now, I'm content. My parents? I haven't spoken to them since that fight. And honestly, I don't think I'll be reconciling with them. They always had a soft spot for Carol, always tried to make me, the older sister, be the bigger person, to make sacrifices, to forgive. But I'm done playing that role. My family, my husband and my kids, they are my everything. If someone disrespects them, they disrespect me. And I'm not forgiving anyone who disrespected my son. After Carol left, I told my son she apologized. He just shrugged. "Doesn't matter," he said. "I decided nothing like this is going to affect me. I'm fine." He's still so young, but he's incredibly strong. And then, 3 years later, the most incredible thing happened. My son, my brave, resilient boy, started walking with crutches. He still needs help. He still uses the wheelchair sometimes, but he's making progress, slowly but surely. It's an exciting, joyful time for our family. Carol and I aren't back to how we were, not constantly in touch. But we do talk. I congratulated her on her baby because yes, she and Kevin worked things out in counseling and welcomed a little one. And she reached out to congratulate me on my son's amazing progress when I shared it online. She's apologized to both me and my son. Maybe someday, we'll be closer. But for now, this works. My parents and I, we're still not talking. And I'm okay with that. My life is full. My son is getting better. I'm happier than ever. Standing up for my son, standing up for myself, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But seeing my family thrive, knowing I protected them, that's worth everything. So, I have to ask, what would you have done in my place when your own family turned on you in such a hurtful way? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.